Who are the big winners and losers from the San Jose Sharks offseason? We'll dive into it.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker at the Reef, also the co-host of Western Conference Tuesdays on the Locked On NHL channel. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Probably part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. If you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do is just follow wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. And today we're going to be kind of looking at some of the off-season's winners and losers based on the moves that the Sharks made in free agency and the draft. And, you know, with every move, like somebody is going to either gain from it or be hurt by the position that that they're going to be currently in. So we're going to look at which players I think had, benefited from it, and which players I think are maybe their jobs or their lives are going to be a little bit tougher here going forward. So before we get into that, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So we have to start, I think, with the biggest off-season winner for the Sharks, and guy going into his second full season with San Jose, and that's William Eklund, right? And I think he is the Sharks' biggest winner of the offseason because he is going to be in a much better position this year, no matter kind of what happens with the line combinations and who plays with who. So as a reminder, going into last year, right? We knew it was supposed to be some combination of Hertl, Granlund, Logan Couture, Nico Sturm down the middle, right? We got 0 games with all 4 of those guys active. Couture missed the entire season, but 6 games. Hertl played until about, the All-Star break, and then he got hurt, and then he got traded to the Vegas Golden Knights. So the Sharks were really, really hurting at center, right? I mean, you had Luke Cunningham playing center. You had Nico Sturm, who's a natural centerman, but, he was playing center. Ryan Carpenter, who was supposed to be on the Sharks on the Barracuda all season, kind of being the veteran guy down there. He ended up playing, majority of the season with the Sharks. They had to trade for Jack Studnicka. Even William Eklund got a spin at center at one point and didn't, we really didn't see. We saw Eklund play well when he played with Hertl. Took a dip when he was having to kind of play a center position and kind of play with some players who, frankly, just aren't at the same skill level as him. And then at the end of the season, when we saw the Lund line formed with Granlund and Zetterlund, he was playing some of his best hockey before the season, finished, right? And you think of the hat trick, of course, against St. Louis, just in general, Eklund was playing great hockey at the end of the season. Fast forward to this year, right? You're looking at, so here are the potential guys on the roster who are guys who I think are locks to play this year, or most likely going to play, who have played center before. Mikael Granlund, Macklin Celebrini, Will Smith. I know Celebrini and Smith are both rookies, and who knows the plan with them, if they're going to start out at center or if they're going to start out at wing. If I had to guess, right, I still think Celebrini starts at center and then Will Smith starts at wing. But they've talked about Will Smith even playing center, right? Alex Wennberg, who the Sharks acquired in free agent or signed in free agency. You have Logan Couture, who, of course, we're not really holding our breath with him. We're kind of wait and see. But then that doesn't include Nico Sturm, Luke Cunningham, Barclay Goodrow. There's just a lot better flexibility with players who play center, and the Sharks are going to be able to potentially run out 2 like actually skilled lines as their top lines, even if it is the Lund line as one line. And if you want to run out like a Celebrini, Toffoli, Klim Kostin, or Wennberg, or whomever, right? No matter what, like they're going to be able to pair skilled players with skilled players before. How often would you see Eklund doing cool stuff, creating something, and then just the guys with him not realizing it in time, or just maybe not able to kind of keep up with him skill wise? And I think we're going to see that pop from Eklund this season, just because of the amount of skill that is in the top 6. And yes, I know Smith and Celebrini are rookies, right? We'll see how Tyler Toffoli, his transition. I still think he's a walking 25 to 30 goal scorer for you until he basically stops doing that. And maybe Mikael Granlund takes a step back with, a guy who's kind of maybe struggled with injuries. Maybe he takes a step. There's a lot of variations, but the Sharks are just more insulated to deal with some of those issues because of the added skill, right? Adding Will Smith, Tyler Toffoli, Alex Wennberg, and of course Macklin Celebrini. That just raises the level of skill that is on the Sharks, and I think Eklund is going to be the biggest winner going into this season. I expect Eklund to really push for 70, 70, 75 points if everyone kind of plays up to the level we're expecting. So in reverse, with all this added skill, one guy who's I think hurt a lot by this offseason is Thomas Bordeleau, right? And Bordeleau kind of spent the year playing at the end of the season playing third line minutes, got a lot of production on the power play, playing with the Lund line, and then Kellen Addison, on the Sharks power play that was surprisingly good at the end of the season. But with all this skill, and Thomas Bordeleau, of course, part of the previous regime in the 2020 draft, he's going to have to come into training camp, hit the ground running, because there's just more skilled players on the roster, and he is going to have to fight for his spot. And even looking at the players that they've added in the bottom 6, Grundström, you have Ty Dellandrea, Barclay Goodrow. That's like an entire line right there that they've basically added in the bottom 6. And we'll talk more about this here in a little bit more, but right, where does Bordeleau fit in from here, right? He's maybe not good enough to play in the top 6, or whose spot is he taking in the top 6? And then I know you can play more than, 1 or 2 good lines, but there's just so many guys, and I don't know if he fits into what the Sharks are trying to kind of put together right now. So I think his offseason, I think he's the player who got hurt the most. You can also put kind of Daniel Gushchin in this bucket, but I still think Gushchin has I still thought Gushchin was going to be playing AHL games this year, and maybe gets a call up at some point later on. And I think they also provide much different skill sets, right? Gushchin is a much more kind of pure sniper player, I think, than Bordeleau. Bordeleau does score goals, but they're just kind of different players. And I think for Gushchin, there's still a pathway if he can just kind of be a absolute sniper and kind of play off some of his line mates. There's still a path for him to play games. But I think that path at the beginning of the season is kind of closed right now for Gushchin. I think for Bordeleau, it's going to be really, really tough for him to crack this lineup unless he comes into camp and just kind of knocks everyone's socks off. And there's a chance he could do that, right? And I think he's played much better last year in the NHL than he did in the AHL. But still, when you add the pieces that the Sharks have, if they had just gotten Celebrini or Smith, then you could maybe kind of see a pathway for Bordeleau. But bringing Celebrini and Smith at the same time, as well as the other moves with Wennberg and with Tyler Toffoli, I think Bordeleau's path to making the roster out of training camp is just going to be really, really tough. So I think he was the guy I think who got hurt the most from the Sharks offseason moves. So we'll dig into some other forwards who I think with the offseason moves probably saw their stock dip a little bit, or could be kind of, maybe facing a different type of role. So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Guarantee Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guarantee Fit, only available to U.S. customers. All right, so Eklund, Bordeleau, pretty easy cases for why those guys, for in Eklund's case, has to be smiling back home in Sweden right now. Bordeleau probably maybe hitting the gym a little bit extra, maybe a little bit extra motivation with some of the moves that the Sharks made. So two guys here who I'm going to kind of lump together, who maybe saw their roles change, or kind of maybe a forgotten guy, and that's Givani Smith and Nico Sturm, right? And you look at what the Sharks, again, doing this offseason, bringing in, trading for Dellandrea, young player, kind of in that bottom six, play some intensity. He's going to have a little bit of a scoring pop, right? Claiming Barclay Goodrow. We know, why Barclay Goodrow was brought here, help protect the children, teach them how to play the right way. He's going to kill penalties, do all that stuff, right? And he's here for the next 3 seasons with this contract, which is, I don't want to say unmovable, but at this point, he's probably going to be here for at least 2.5 seasons, right? And then trading for Carl Grundström, again, another kind of heavy bottom six forward, who's going to, bring a little bit of a scoring pop as well. But again, another kind of big, heavy forward to help kind of protect the children. And you look at Givani Smith, right, who missed a ton of last year because of injuries, and came back at the end of the season, of course, but he's already 26. He's got he's only making $800,000 this year. He played 36 games last year. He had a goal, 3 assists, and 4 points, with 40 penalty minutes in 36 games. He feels like a guy who is probably fighting for his roster spot and is going to at some point end up on the Barracuda here. I know there's very cheap contract, $800,000. Maybe a team wants to take a flyer on him to help kind of fill out their bottom six, but I just think that where the Sharks invested their money, invested their picks, right? You traded for Dellandrea and you gave him a $1.3 million contract, right? You traded for Carl Grundström, and you gave him Dellandrea gave, was that 2 years at 1.3. Grundström, you traded for him and gave him 2 years at 1.8. You're investing more into those guys who kind of play a very similar role as Givani Smith. So yeah, for Givani Smith, you're probably going to be playing on the Barracuda this year. And if there's major injuries when it comes to guys like Grundström and Dellandrea, and that's where you basically kind of got replaced because you couldn't stay healthy last year. And there's just, I think, more guys in the bottom six here that kind of fill the same role. So I think he was a big loser from this offseason. And then Nico Sturm, who Nico Sturm, kind of the best, I would say you would the best Sharks penalty killer, great on the faceoffs, right? Like that cup winner, leader type of player. Yeah, the Sharks got Barclay Goodrow, who basically kind of does all the same things. And you look at the investment rate for Goodrow. I know he was placed on waivers and Sharks picked him up, but that 3-year contract at $3.6 million, and Nico Sturm, who is on the last year of his deal at a much more affordable $2 million. Like, I think, and especially too, if with Wennberg, who can play center, if Logan Couture comes back, Nico Sturm is probably going to be lost. I know he's really, really good on faceoffs. Maybe he takes faceoffs and then he slides to the wing, or maybe Barclay Goodrow slides. But like the Sharks kind of replaced Nico Sturm when they got Barclay Goodrow, because of what, one, again, the investment, two, with Nico Sturm in the last year of his deal, he's going to be trade bait for somebody. And whether it comes at the trade deadline or maybe a team would rather, if they feel like they need some more help at the bottom, their bottom six coming out of training camp, Sturm's days in San Jose are numbered, just because of the moves that they made. And this, again, with the flexibility of especially if Logan Couture comes back, Wennberg, who can play center, and then Barclay Goodrow is your 4C. Like, where does Nico Sturm kind of fit into the Sharks puzzle here? Especially because they've also invested in his replacement between Barclay Goodrow and then getting Dellandrea, who I think is a solid penalty killer, and getting Carl Grundström, who's a big, heavy forward. They've went out of their way to kind of diversify that position and get Nico Sturm's replacement, which is smart for a guy who you're going to lose at some point this year, because teams value what Nico Sturm brings, especially championship quality teams who want a guy who can come in, play fourth line minutes, right, and kill penalties and win a bunch of faceoffs. Nico Sturm can do that for a team. So I think though, maybe for Sturm, where you could have seen a path to playing 3C minutes like he did last year, or the past couple seasons for the Sharks. And he was, 2 years ago, he was great. He had a career high in goals. Last year, I think with the kind of loss of talent, didn't really get to kind of display that as much with that production. And now he's basically going to be looking for a new spot here, whether it's at the trade deadline or if it's sometime earlier. Nico Sturm is going to be elsewhere, because the Sharks can probably get a really nice asset for him, and he is not part of their long-term plans with some of the players that they have brought on. So those are two forwards I think really kind of hurt by the off-season moves by the Sharks, and probably will not be on the team, the 25-26 version of the San Jose Sharks, because of the investments they've made elsewhere. So we'll look at some guys who should be on the Sharks for foreseeable future and maybe a long time, and why the offseason was a win for them. So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. Great thing about summer, of course, is going to baseball games, or if you want to maybe catch a concert, go catch a comedy show, whatever it is, you need to check out Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals on prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. I really love to see what your seats look like. To me, nothing worse than getting to an event and realizing my seats stink. So at Game Time, you can actually see a nice view. This is what it's going to look like. I know I'm going to have a great time when I go. They have last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, so you can really kind of find how much you want to pay, where you want to sit. They do a good job of kind of finding that target for you. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL. LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right. Want to thank you guys, of course, for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. When you're done, make sure you guys go check out. There's plenty of good stuff, especially here with the Locked On Bay Area. If you want to get ready for Niners, they're starting to get geared up for training camp. Of course, the Giants are doing miraculous things. So go check out Locked On Giants. Go check out Locked On Warriors. Whatever it is, tickles your fancy. We got you covered here at Locked On, the Locked On Network. So as we finish up, I think two young defensemen really probably enjoying what kind of the moves or maybe the lack thereof of moves in the defense department, right? And you look at Mike Grier, and I know he wanted to kind of help the blue line, but he shipped out Kyle Burroughs and he traded for Jake Wallman on a salary dump where he got a second round pick out of that in this year's draft. So like the Sharks really didn't do too much to their blue line. So you have to look at any young defenseman, and I'll specifically start with Ty Emberson, who right-handed defenseman. I know he is going to arbitration. Again, I'm not going to worry about arbitration for that. It will figure itself out. Deadlines for actions, et cetera, et cetera. He'll get his money, whether it's 1 year, 2 years, whatever. But Emberson, who played really well last year, but missed some time because of injuries. And I know one of it was a freak accident with the skate cut. But he, in last year played 30 games, had a goal, 9 assists, 10 points, but was really good defensively, I thought. Played really well on the right side, and the Sharks don't have a ton of right-handed defensemen. You have Matt Benny's coming back from an injury, and it's basically Benny and Ty Emberson are the right-handed defensemen. Ruda has played on offhand. Vlasic's played offhand. Like, some of these guys have played on their offhands before, but there's, really not too much competition for Emberson to kind of make this team, and not only make this team, I think play big minutes on this team as a potential top 4 defenseman, especially on the right side, right? If you go Wallman, like Ferraro, and have one of them play on their offhand. And then Benning, if he's coming back from injury, if he's okay, and then maybe Ty Emberson. But I think Emberson, realistically could be playing top 4 minutes for the Sharks this year. And if, he signs a 1-year deal and then has a monster season this year where he proves to be a kind of shutdown type of defenseman, could set himself up for a nice payday going into next year, especially if he only signs a 1-year deal with the Sharks. So, and the Sharks will still have his RFA rights, could set himself up really, really nicely because of the lack of moves on the blue line to kind of help solidify that. And there's still plenty of time. Maybe the Sharks do go out and try to add somebody on the right hand. I did a episode I think it was last week, about some potential options for right-handed defensemen who are still out there. Hasn't really been too much movement here with I think with the Sharks. I think somebody signed with the Panthers, but it's, there's still Tyson Barrie, there's Schultz out there. Those are potential options if the Sharks wanted to add someone there. And then I think another young defenseman who has to be feeling really good about his chances to make the team is Shakir Mukhamadullin, right? I know the left side is way more stacked, right? Again, you have Vlasic, you have Ferraro, you have Wallman, you have Jan Ruda, you have Henry Thrun. I still, if you look at what Mukhamadullin does, really nobody other than Wallman, who's a puck moving defenseman, but nobody else can really do what Shakir Mukhamadullin does. And if Wallman can, maybe he's a power play 1. If Shakir Mukhamadullin makes the team and is the power play 2, I It's a good place to set him up for early successes. And then maybe you partner him with a Ty Emberson who can be a little bit more defensive oriented, let Mukhamadullin play a little bit more offensive game, which I think he's more geared to. Not to say that his defense, he can't play defense. Mukhamadullin, I think, can play pretty solid defense, but he just has some offensive traits that other guys just don't have, and especially for a guy of his 6'4" size. He moves really well, except for pivoting really quickly. But anyway, moves really well with the puck and without the puck. Cover ground really well. And I think what he does in the offensive zone could be a really big boost for the Sharks. So with the lack of moves, I think from the Sharks on the blue line, basically swapping Kyle Burroughs for Jake Walman, which is a huge upgrade. Don't get me wrong. Like, Walman, I think, is a much better player than Kyle Burroughs, and still really weird offseason from Detroit, but that's neither here nor there. I think Mike Grier wants to give these young guys an opportunity to go earn some jobs and see if they can kind of use this year to grow and develop and hopefully start to kind of set the foundation for the blue line for San Jose for years to come. So, and I think Ty Emberson and Shakir Mukhamadullin have a chance to kind of be big pieces in that. And again, if Emberson can stay healthy, is huge. But some of the other guys like Matt Benning, who's got 2 years left at 1.25, like very small contract, right? Vlasic's got 2 years left at his $7 million, who's just going to be here until the sun explodes. And Ferraro, of course, there's going to be trade rumors around Ferraro until either he gets traded or he signs an extension with the Sharks or becomes a free agent. Like there's a lot of, and Jan Ruda's in the last year of his deal. Like there's this blue line is going to turn over here really quickly. And if you look at, the 26-27 season, it's going to be a lot of new faces, whether, with guys like Thrun and Emberson and Shakir Mukhamadullin and Jack Thompson. Like there's going to be a lot of new faces for this blue line. And I think Grier's done it's an interesting approach from Grier to kind of set the table for these guys to kind of earn their spots and try to push out some of these veterans here. So, so I think those are the kind of 6 players who benefited or were hurt the most by the San Jose Sharks off-season moves. Of course, signing Macklin Celebrini, signing Will Smith, getting Tyler Toffoli, I think are huge. That's basically a top 6 line. You just kind of, or top 2 line that you just kind of built out of free, from guys who just weren't even here last year. I think the lack of moves on the blue line is just very interesting. I'm curious to see what Grier does there, if he tries to add another piece as the offseason kind of winds down, or if he just is like, let's let it ride. Let's see if a new system with Ryan Warsofsky kind of installing it. We can see if these young guys can another year maybe take a big jump here. So that's going to be it for me today. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll do some more. We'll kind of get to know some of the a little bit better on some of the draft guys, who the Sharks drafted. So we're not just going to be talking about Celebrini. Kind of get to know a little bit more of those guys, start to kind of dive into those. Next week, I'm working on my Sam Dickinson deep dive. So we'll have a big Sam Dickinson deep dive next week, kind of talk about as he signed his DLC, talk about what he's kind of expected from him, what his path of development looks like, and kind of what he needs to work on as he continues to grow and develop. So so that's gonna be it for me today. Make sure you follow wherever you get podcasts, and of course you can watch on YouTube as well. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Follow me on Twitter at MyFryhole. Till tomorrow. Bye, friends.